Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. I hope everyone's having a great day. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you very much for coming back. And if you're brand new to the channel, real quick, hit that subscribe button. So today we are going to do probably one of the most neglected servicings on a UTV. We're going to grease the wheel bearings. And why do I think it's the most neglected service out there? Well, everyone will change the front differential, the rear differential, your transmission, sub-transmission. If you have a belt drive, you change your belts because they're always thought about. But what about greasing the wheel bearings? You know, we put the Super ATV A-arms on here and they come with grease certs. So we just naturally can grease them pretty easy. The factory ones didn't. So there's a couple ways to grease your wheel bearings. Now, it's a really easy job if you got the right tools. And let me go over it with you. So first thing you're gonna do, if you notice, I've removed the tire. The next thing you're gonna do is you're gonna remove your brake caliper right here. And it's just 2 bolts on the back side. There's one there and one on the bottom, and they're a 14 millimeter on the Pioneer. And then we're going to remove this cotter pin and your axle nut. After that, we're going to take the whole hub assembly right here off with your lug nuts and everything. So if you didn't know, this whole thing is held on by this one nut. Now, as you can see, I'm running the 1.5-inch wheel spacers on here. I actually don't have to take those off to do this. Now, there is a couple of ways to grease your wheel bearings. The first way is to do it the old school way, is to pull the wheel bearings out and hand pack them and put them back in. And that takes a while. It's a nasty mess. I don't like to do that. I have in the past, but I won't and don't like to now. The next way to do it is to buy one of these goofy tools. And what this does is, let me see. So you see the grease there. There's actually a hole right there. And you put your grease gun on here and it pops out of the hole and it goes down this groove. And this will actually slide over your axle. And I'll show you here in a minute. We pull this off. And this will push all the old nasty grease outside the back of the wheel bearing without you removing your axle. So when is the best time to grease your wheel bearings? Well, hindsight's always 20/20. I should have done this when I had the A-arms off and I was switching to my Super ATV A-arms. Oh well. It's a 15-minute job per wheel. You can probably get it down to 10 if you're getting real good and real quick. But it needs to be done. So how often should you do this? Well, that's really on your riding conditions. So if you ride a lot of mud, a lot of water, you're probably going to do this every 200 to 300 miles. 500 miles is probably pushing it. For someone like me who does mainly hard pack, I use this as a daily driver. I drive around my neighborhood every day. It's actually really early in the morning right now, and I need to get this back together. This is my last wheel, so I can get my kids to school in this thing. I probably do it every 1,200 miles, maybe 1,000 miles, I don't know. I've done it once before. I'm right around that 1,000-mile mark now. I'm trying to get this whole thing ready to go for riding season. I have a big ride coming up here in a week. We're going out to Salome Highway, out some old mines out here in Arizona. And there's supposed to be a small group of us going. So I'll make sure I'm good to go. My main concern is the grease will dry up. I do a lot of dusty riding, so we want to get all that out. So let's go ahead, let's get everything apart, let's get this done and greased. So like I said, I already got the wheel off. It's 2 14 millimeter bolts to get the caliper off. This is also a great time to check your brake pads. Having a spare set of brake pads isn't a bad deal. We'll take off the 30 millimeter axle nut, pop the whole hub off, and get this greased. The first step is we're going to get this cotter pin off. So essentially that 30mm bolt is what's holding on your whole wheel assembly. So if you were to ever break an axle, you always want to leave this stub in because these little tabs are just holding on your brake caliper. So as you can see in there, the grease is still there. It's pretty nasty. So these are your wheel bearings. They're not super expensive. They're about 25 bucks a piece, but there's your snap ring right there. The camera's showing that, holding it in. So this piece here just slides over, and you just push it all the way back. Now, I'm getting some resistance from the axle because of the angle, but that's okay. Make sure everything's nice and seated. Okay, and that's it. So I do have grease coming out from the back side. So I'll go ahead, remove this. As you can see, it's full of grease. Take a paper towel, wipe this all down. So there's the nasty grease that came off. We're gonna get this cleaned up and reassembled. So for reassembly, it's just in reverse order. Pretty easy. So I've already cleaned this up, as you can see. I've got this nice and clean. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put just a little bit of grease in here to lubricate these splines, to make it slide on, and to help it not to seize in the future. So now that I've greased them, just get them lined up. Just like that. Again, everything's in reverse order. Make sure that you don't get any grease on your rotor. If you do, wipe it off before you put your brake pads on there. Go ahead and take your axle nut, get this on here, torque it down. We'll take our brake caliper. So on these, I don't know if the camera shows it, they came factory with some Loctite. So I'm gonna use a little bit of blue Loctite. You don't want your brake calipers falling off. Okay, now that I've got everything torqued down, the last thing for me to do before I put the wheel on is a cotter pin. And like I said in previous videos, I don't like to reuse cotter pins. These are about 29 cents at Ace Hardware for the stainless steel versions. If you were to buy them from Honda, they're like $1.80. So we'll just go ahead and we'll feed that through. It is a little bit harder with a wheel spacer, but it can be done. And we'll bend it up. Greasing your wheel bearings is just that easy. It's 10 to 15 minutes per tire. You only need a few hand tools to do it and a torque wrench. You need your 30mm axle nut for the Pioneer, your 14mm caliper nuts on the back side or bolts. You need a new cotter pin, a pair of needle nose pliers, and your torque wrench. That's it. Getting the greasing tool is relatively cheap. I think the one I have here is around $20 to $25. You can spend a little bit more money and get ones with more grease ports. This one seems to be just fine for my need. Remember, you're only going to use this every 6 to 12 months, depending on how often you grease them. If you're using your Pioneer in a lot of water or mud, like the guys down south, you probably want to grease them more often. to push any of that nasty stuff out. Make sure you use a high quality grease. Follow your OEM specs. I use mine every day in the dirt riding, hard pack, so every 6 to 12 months is good for me. Let me know in the comments below, have you ever even greased them? Like I said in the beginning of the video, this is probably the most neglected area that people don't realize. Your wheel bearings aren't expensive, they're about $25 a piece. They're way more labor intensive to replace. Buy one of these cheap tools, do it as part of your annual oil changes at a minimum, if not more often. Anyways, have a great day. Don't forget to give me a big thumbs up if you liked the video. Don't forget to subscribe, and until next time.